I was what you consider a hustler.
Drug dealer.
It's a harsh word, yeah.
JAÐ-Z.
I never thought I'd be the one to say it, but it looks like the blueprint has a fatal flaw. The subject of today's video is nothing short of a cultural titan with a career that reads like a mythology spanning over 3 decades. From the crack-ravaged hallways of Marcy Projects to the executive suites of Roc Nation to owning the masters and becoming the first billionaire to ever do it with a mic in his hand. The person we'll be covering today is a leviathan in the music industry and once the ultimate symbol of black capitalism, who's recently come under fire for alleged associations so toxic and damaging to his legacy that he now finds himself fighting the ghosts he thought he buried in the 90s. Luckily for us, the paper trail is long and the receipts are etched in permanent marker, which we'll explore here in this video. Shawn Corey Carter, born on December 4th, 1969 in Brooklyn, New York, raised in the Marcy houses, a public housing project that was less of a home and more of a survival experiment. His father, Adnis Reeves, abandoned the family when Shawn was only 11 years old, leaving him to be raised by his mother, Gloria Carter. This abandonment was the moment, as Jay later put it, that Superman left the crib. It shattered his worldview and replaced it with a cold, hard reality. Attachment is a weakness. He attended George Westinghouse Career and Technical Education High School alongside Biggie Smalls and Busta Rhymes, but a diploma wasn't the goal, survival was. Instead of graduating, he enrolled in the School of Hard Knocks, majoring in the narcotics trade of the 1980s crack epidemic. Shawn Carter spent his formative years selling crack cocaine, allegedly expanding his operations up and down the I-95 corridor. He would later rebrand this as his business school, claiming it taught him financial literacy, but let's be real, he was a teenager in a war zone. He was shot at 3 times, he saw his neighbors turn into zombies, but the darkest moment, the moment that truly forged his iceberg slim persona, at 12 years old, he shot his own brother in the shoulder for stealing his jewelry.
And here are some lyrics you wrote about your brother. You said, saw the devil in your eyes, high off more than weed. Confused, I just closed my young eyes and squeezed. What a sound, opened my eyes just in time to see you stumbling to the ground.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about that on TV. It's not cool.
Think about that. A child pulling the trigger on his own brother to protect an asset. That is the origin story. That is the mindset he carried into the music business. When the labels rejected him, he didn't complain. He partnered with Dame Dash and Kareem Biggs Burke to found Roc-A-Fella Records in 1995. Selling CDs out of a trunk, he turned a no into a dynasty. This led to Reasonable Doubt in 1996, a certified classic, followed by Volume 2, Hard Knock Life in 1998, which turned him into a global superstar. But he wasn't satisfied with just being a rapper. He wanted to be the infrastructure. In 2001, he released The Blueprint, an album so monumental, it's sitting in the Library of Congress right now. He became the president of Def Jam Records in 2004. He signed Rihanna. He signed Kanye West. He signed Neo. He launched Ace of Spades. He bought Tidal. He married Beyonce Knowles, forming a union that is essentially a sovereign nation. And in 2019, Forbes officially crowned him hip-hop's first billionaire. Put the diamonds in the sky, right? The man won. He beat the system. However, that ascent was paved over a lot of bodies and a lot of silence. This wouldn't quite be enough to stop the juggernaut, though. He would go on to face the biggest threat to his empire only a few years later as the skeletons in his closet started banging on the door. I need you to lock in real quick because this is where the story shifts from a triumph to a crime thriller. To understand why the public is turning on Jay-Z now, you have to look at the violence that was always lurking beneath the suit. In 1999, at the peak of his powers, Jay-Z was at the Kit Kat Club in Manhattan. He suspected record executive Lance Rivera of bootlegging his album. A normal CEO would sue. Jay-Z pulled out a blade and stabbed him. He surrendered to the police. He was looking at 15 years, but instead of a prison cell, he got probation. He pled guilty to a misdemeanor. He dodged a bullet. This was the pivot point. It taught him that physical violence was too risky for a man with his net worth. So he traded the knife for the NDA. He traded the street beef for the settlement agreement. But the predatory instinct didn't disappear. It just got smarter. Look at his partnership with R. Kelly. In 2002 and 2004, Jay-Z released 2 albums and toured with the man. This was years after the allegations were public. This was years after the Aaliyah marriage scandal. Jay-Z didn't care. He saw a revenue stream. The tour imploded at Madison Square Garden not because of moral outrage, but because Kelly was acting erratic and messing with the bag. Jay's associate Ty allegedly pepper sprayed Kelly backstage. It was chaos. But Jay didn't cut ties because Kells was a monster. He cut ties because R. Kelly was a liability. As long as the money was green, the red flags didn't matter. And then, the elephant in the room, Shawn Diddy Combs. Jay-Z and Diddy are the twin towers of hip-hop capitalism. They shared the same parties, they hosted the same events. When the feds raided Diddy and the horror stories came out, the world waited for Jay to say something. Crickets, not a peep. And this is where the Epstein files enter the chat. Recently, unsealed documents from the Epstein case started making rounds. Jay-Z's name popped up in a raw data dump. Now, we gotta be fair, the mention was tied to a 1996 claim involving Harvey Weinstein. It was a third-party claim, it was never proven, it was never litigated. In 1996, Jay was barely on the radar. The idea that he was running with Weinstein back then is a stretch. But here's the issue. Nobody cares about the truth when the lie is more entertaining. Why? Because of the credibility deficit. When you spend decades standing next to R. Kelly, when you spend decades partying with Diddy, when you have a record of stabbing executives and shooting your own sibling, you don't get the benefit of reasonable doubt anymore. The public looks at Jay-Z and they don't see an innocent man. They see a man who's always been comfortable in rooms where predators eat. They see a man who's mastered the art of moving in silence. And they're starting to ask, what exactly are you hiding? And the hits keep coming. In late 2023, a lawsuit dropped accusing Jay-Z of SA from the year 2000. That case was dismissed. The accuser's story had holes, wrong dates, wrong descriptions. It was thrown out without prejudice. Jay called it a victory against extortion. Legally, sure it was a win. But culturally, the armor is dented. Because what we're seeing is that billions of dollars can't buy you a clean slate. Jay-Z rose to fame by being a lyrical savant, but his legacy was built on a promise. He sold the world the idea of the honorable hustler. He told us that the streets had a code. The streets don't have a code. They have casualties. Between 1984 and 1989, while Jay was learning about budgets, selling poison, his community was being hollowed out. Mothers were losing sons. Families were being destroyed. There's no honor in that. And now, as he sits in his ivory tower, the past is climbing the walls. Jay-Z's career is the ultimate proof that class passing is a fantasy. He staked his entire existence on a gamble that he could buy his way out of vulnerability. He thought that if he collected enough Basquiats, if he drank enough Douce, if he wore enough Tom Ford, the establishment would forget that he was Shawn Carter from the projects. He thought he had purchased immunity. But to the true powers that be, the Weinsteins, the Epsteins, the people who actually pull the strings, he's just a visitor, and visitors can be kicked out. Harvey Weinstein got away with his crimes for 30 years because the system was designed to protect him. But a black mogul? The second your baggage outweighs your profit margin, the system will consume you. Jay-Z built a fortress of silence. He thought if he never spoke, he couldn't be touched. But silence isn't a shield when the house is on fire. We're watching the myth of the honorable hustler dissolve. He shot his brother over jewelry. He stabbed a man over a bootleg. He partnered with predators over profits. He's always been consistent. He's always chosen the asset over the human. And now, as the files leak and the rumors swirl, he's learning the hardest lesson of all. You can buy the penthouse. You can buy the silence of the industry for a decade, but you cannot buy a new soul. Shawn Carter spent his whole life running from the ghost of Marcy Projects, but the ghost caught up, and it turns out the ghost was him. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, you're the real MVP, and you are going to be the reason this video reaches others in a massive way. If you want to see more deep dives like this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment. It lets YouTube know that we're cooking over here, and I would really, really appreciate it. I'm chasing that 1,000 subscriber mark so I can hopefully do this full time because I love making these videos, but they take forever. And you know, brother gotta eat. Anyway, my next video, we'll be covering another figure who might be on shaky ground. I'll give you a hint.
So, I come from a project called Godsville, right? So, also, it was like the Mecca of the 5%ers. So I was the God crack king, great God Allah. Yo. Yo, I'm telling you what it is.
Drop his name in the comments so I know you made it to the end. Check out my other videos here and here if you're in the mood to binge. Don't forget to like and subscribe, but more importantly, be the person you'd like to meet. Peace.
Oh man, I'm about to pop out. And you know I brought the drop out.